Today we are on A Course in Miracles, Chapter 3, Section 2, Miracles and True Perception. And then what I'll do is I'll pause after this section and we can discuss it. So today, I have stated that the basic concepts referred to in this course are not matters of degree. Certain fundamental concepts cannot be understood in terms of opposites. It is impossible to conceive of light and darkness, or everything and nothing, as joint possibilities. They are all true or all false. It is essential that you realize your thinking will be erratic until a firm commitment to one or the other is made. A firm commitment to darkness or nothingness, however, is impossible. No one has ever lived who has not experienced some light and something. No one, therefore, is able to deny truth totally, even if he thinks he can. Innocence is not a partial attribute. It is not real until it is total. The partly innocent are apt to be quite foolish at times. It is not until their innocence becomes a viewpoint with universal application that it becomes wisdom. Innocent or true perception means that you never misperceive and always see truly. More simply, it means that you never see what does not exist and always see what does. When you lack confidence in what someone will do, you're attesting to your belief that he is not in his right mind. This is hardly a miracle-based frame of reference. It also has the disastrous effect of denying the power of the miracle. The miracle perceives everything as it is. If nothing but the truth exists, right-minded seeing cannot see anything but perfection. I have said that only what God creates, or what you create with the same will, has any real existence. This, then, is all the innocent can see. They do not suffer from distorted perception. You are afraid of God's will because you have used your own mind, which he created in the likeness of his own, to miscreate. The mind can miscreate only when it believes it is not free. An imprisoned mind is not free because it is possessed or held back by itself. It is therefore limited. And the will is not free to assert itself. To be one is to be of one mind or will. When the will of the sonship and the Father are one, their perfect accord is heaven. Nothing can prevail against a son of God who commends his spirit into the hands of his Father. By doing this, the mind awakens from its sleep and remembers its Creator. All sense of separation disappears. The Son of God is part of the Holy Trinity, but the Trinity itself is one. There is no confusion within its levels because they are of one mind and one will. This single purpose creates perfect integration and establishes the peace of God. Yet this vision can be perceived only by the truly innocent because their hearts are pure. The innocent defend true perception instead of defending themselves against it. Understanding the lesson of the at-one-ment, they are without the wish to attack, and therefore they see truly. This is what the Bible means when it says, "When he shall appear or be perceived, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is." The way to correct distortions is to withdraw your faith in them and invest it only in what is true. You cannot make untruth true. If you are willing to accept what is true in everything you perceive, you let it be true for you. Truth overcomes all error, and those who live in error and emptiness can never find lasting solace. If you perceive truly, you are canceling out misperceptions in yourself and in others simultaneously. Because you see them as they are, you offer them your acceptance of their truth so they can accept it for themselves. This is the healing that the miracle induces. Okay. And now we pause to discuss anything that anybody would like to share or add or ask a question about.
I think that puts quite a lot of pressure on the individual.
Tell me more, Freddie.
Well, all the emphasis is on me and my perceptions, and it says nothing about the other person. They, you know, they can't really be wrong. You know, it's only me that can be wrong. Only my perceptions can be wrong. So it puts a lot of pressure on the individual, you know, to start seeing what's out there truly. And there's no onus on anything that we see. And we know there's some crazy people out there. And yet all the emphasis is on me to change my perception.
Yeah.
That's just a comment. So there's quite a bit of pressure on me to change, regardless of what appears on my screen.
That's true.
Any truth? How do you feel about that?
Well, I think that it is true, but you can also look at it from the other perception and realize that you're not a victim of the world, right? You don't have to be a victim of the people you think are crazy. You can take 100% responsibility for how you wish to perceive them, and you can perceive them as complete and whole and loving, and realize that whatever they're spewing is just part of the distorted perception of their reality, and you can choose to see them in complete wholeness and light and realize that it's just part of the separation that's showing that to you. And I find too that as you begin to change your perception of others, the way you perceive others begins to change. And all of a sudden you don't feel so triggered and attacked. And the things that they're saying don't seem to bother you so much because you are changing your perception of them, and they're still saying the same things and doing the same things, but now you're no longer being triggered and feeling personally attacked by that, because you're understanding that you're healing that part of your perception that's wounded, right? That part of your perception that you needed to love a little bit more. You're giving all of that love to yourself. So now you're looking out from that new lens. It's almost like if you were to see a child that, for whatever reason, came up to you and said, you know, you have a purple face. And you look at the child and you realize that they're looking through that lens of their perception, and to them, you have a purple face, but you know your face isn't purple. And you can kind of smile and laugh and go, okay. and I'm going to give you my love. And you think I have a purple face, and that's okay, right? But that doesn't seem to trigger you or bother you, because you know you don't have a purple face. But if someone said to you, you're wrong about this thing, there might be something inside of you that says, are they right? Is there a little part of them that's right? And maybe you need to defend against that because it's triggering some early situation that happened, you know, maybe when you were 5 years old and someone told you you were not worthy, or you were wrong, or you were not good enough. And so that little 5-year-old is reacting and responding to whatever this trigger is that, you know, has nothing to do with the Freddie of today that's an adult and knows that, you know, I am well and I am okay. But somehow that little 5-year-old is still getting triggered in there, right?
Yeah.
Still part of that healing and that undoing. And the more we can love and heal our own inner self, the more we can see the innocence in everyone around us. Yeah.
I appreciate all these comments. And something that stuck a long time ago is the idea that when I change, or when we change, our world changes. So that's something, I mean, I can see it working out that way in life. You know, the more love I give, the more love I get.
Right.
I've found through my experience that I've worked with a lot of real bad people in my life, and I've seen a lot of bad things, and I see them every day, things going on that aren't right, and I see people, but I can't really judge any of these people, none of them, because there is only one. We all are the same, and I see the badness in somebody else, and when I see that badness, I have to put it back on myself. It says that badness that I'm seeing is a reflection of me, is a reflection of what I need to overcome inside myself to overcome that to gain enlightenment or be one with God or do what the Course is telling you to do, because there is no duality. There is no them, or it's not us, it's me. So it is telling you that you have to change, because when you do all the changes, then you will be everyone, and it'll all be right. So you do have to do all the work, because you're the only one that can. You're the only one that you have control of.
Really appreciate those comments.
Well said, Carl.
I have an example, if that's okay. I'm just new at the Course of Miracles, so this is still very new to me. So this is, I haven't even read the first sections, so jumping into section 3, but what stood out for me was actually like a living example. I went through, I have 2 sons, and I raised a stepson and a stepdaughter. And my stepson at one point had an elderly aunt visiting with us, and he had a stealing problem, and he stole her entire like elder payment. It was like a monthly payment. And her response to it was, when we found out it happened, her response was that she took him in her arms and held him and said, "I love you." And it was just this beautiful moment, because for me, I couldn't see past the act of stealing. I was so upset and devastated for this woman. I thought, poor her, she's elderly, and there was all these emotions in me, but she just kind of almost like smiled, like it's okay, and she just held him and said, "I love you." And she was able to see in him the innocence. Like it was such a beautiful moment, and I just wanted to share that example, because it was just such wisdom and grace that she had, and there was literally no anger, no sadness, and just this complete trust that it's going to be okay. Like the universe will provide. Like, you took that money, but it's going to be okay, and I love you, and you're innocent. And just wanted to share that example, because that's what really stood out when I was reading that example.
That's beautiful, Natalie. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Gorgeous.
I wonder if she does that even without being a Course in Miracles student too.
Yeah, she is. She's just, and just to like quickly add on that, she was an Inuit woman from Northern Canada, and she was one of the Arctic exiles. If you ever read the story of the Arctic exiles, that was exiled up to northern remote communities. And despite that, all that she went through, like I've heard stories about it, just this horrific betrayal of the government. And this is a woman who lived in pure peace and grace. I mean, just the most loving human being, one of the most loving human beings I've ever met, with an incredible history of trauma and so on. So from what I know, I don't think she ever read the Course of Miracles, but she certainly is a living example of it, and how I guess the Holy Spirit can work through people even outside of this book.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you.
It does, Course in Miracles does say all paths lead to God, and this isn't the only path, which obviously it's not, because we're all one, as Carl said. You know, how could there be any other way? But what a beautiful story, Natalie. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love to hear those examples. Okay, anybody else before we continue? All right, so the next section is perception versus knowledge. We have been emphasizing perception and have said very little about knowledge as yet. This is because perception must be straightened out before you can know anything. To know is to be certain. Uncertainty means that you do not know. Knowledge is power because it is certain, and certainty is strength. Perception is temporary. As an attribute of the belief in space and time, it is subject to either fear or love. Misperceptions produce fear, and true perceptions foster love, but neither brings certainty because all perception varies. That is why it is not knowledge. True perception is the basis for knowledge, but knowing is the affirmation of truth and beyond all perceptions. All your difficulties stem from the fact that you do not recognize yourself, your brother, or God. To recognize means to know again, implying that you knew before. You can see in many ways because perception involves interpretation, and this means that it is not whole or consistent. The miracle, being a way of perceiving, is not knowledge. It is the right answer to a question, but you do not question when you know. Questioning illusions is the first step in undoing them. The miracle or the right answer corrects them. Since perceptions change, their dependence on time is obvious. How you perceive at any given time determines what you do, and actions must occur in time. Knowledge is timeless because certainty is not questionable. You know when you have ceased to ask questions. The questioning mind perceives itself in time and therefore looks for future answers. The closed mind believes the future and the present will be the same. This establishes a seemingly stable state that is usually an attempt to counteract an underlying fear that the future will be worse than the present. This fear inhibits the tendency to question at all. True vision is the natural perception of spiritual sight, but it is still a correction rather than a fact. Spiritual sight is symbolic and therefore not a device for knowing. It is, however, a means of right perception, which brings it into the proper domain of the miracle. A vision of God would be a miracle rather than a revelation. The fact that perception is involved at all removes the experience from the realm of knowledge. That is why visions, however holy, do not last. The Bible tells you to know yourself or to be certain. Certainty is always of God. When you love someone, you have perceived him as he is, and this makes it possible for you to know him. Until you first perceive him and he is as he is, you cannot know him. While you ask questions about him, you are clearly implying that you do not know God. Certainty does not require action. When you say you are acting on the basis of knowledge, you are really confusing knowledge with perception. Knowledge provides the strength for creative thinking, but not for right doing. Perception, miracles, and doing are closely related. Knowledge is the result of revelation and induces only thought. Even in its most spiritualized form, perception involves the body. Knowledge comes from the altar within and is timeless because it is certain. To perceive the truth is not the same as to know it. Right perception is necessary before God can communicate directly to his altars, which he established in his sons. There he can communicate his certainty, and his knowledge will bring peace without question. God is not a stranger to his sons, and his sons are not strangers to each other. Knowledge preceded both perception and time, and will ultimately replace them. That is the real meaning of Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. And before Abraham was, I am. Perception can and must be stabilized, but knowledge is stable. Fear God and keep his commandments becomes know God and accept his certainty. If you attack error in another, you will hurt yourself. You cannot know your brother when you attack him. Attack is always made upon a stranger. You are making him a stranger by misperceiving him, and so you cannot know him. It is because you have made him a stranger that you are afraid of him. Perceive him correctly so that you can know him. There are no strangers in God's creation. To create as he created, you can create only what you know and therefore accept as yours. God knows his children with perfect certainty. He created them by knowing them. He recognizes them perfectly. When they do not recognize each other, they do not recognize him. There you go, Freddie. Right back at us again.
Just piling on the pressure a bit more.
Hello, Angelina. Nice to see you here today. Yeah, so it is just our responsibility, right? Hey, Tim, good to see you today.
Hey there. Good to see you. It's good to be seen in this body for a little while longer.
That's right. That's
Little
right.
joke there. You know, when my daughter is still here, she came with her husband from Portland, Oregon, and they arrived November 14th, and they're still here, and we're loving it. They're going to be leaving in another few weeks. But what I told her on one of our walks together, and she, you know, I've introduced the course to her over the years, the decades, and it's never been her thing. But I just said to her, I said, you know, there's one lesson that I try to get this in my head whenever I'm feeling threatened. And I told her, I said, 6 words. I have 6 words for you. That's all you got to remember. And that was, in my defenselessness, my safety lies. So if I'm feeling threatened, then I've forgotten that lesson. If I can just get back to that, what it does is it loosens me from, you know, my perception as something that can be attacked. So if I'm looking at myself as a thought system or as a body or as a stupid old man or whatever, I have to joke about myself and others a lot to keep the perspective. So hopefully that doesn't offend anyone. I don't think so. But anyway, that's what I told her. I haven't brought it up again, and that was several months ago now. So anyway, I just share that because that's like a critical step that you cannot understand a miracle as long as you're locked into defending yourself. It's not gonna happen if you spend, you know, everyone out there is a potential enemy, that you feel that they can steal something from you. I assure you, they can steal nothing other than the stuff that we possess. So anyway, that's it. I'll shut up.
Yeah, that was a great share, Tim. And, you know, I think about this too, because, you know, having done this for such a long time, you just think about obviously the close family members that are around you, right? And you don't always agree with them. And I know, you know, me personally, there's times when I think, you know, why is this person acting this way? And I don't like this part of this person, you know, that's showing me anger, or that's showing me this energy that's conflicting with my peace, right? And we make them wrong, or I should say I make them wrong for bringing this energy into my space. And I'm like, I don't like it, right? I want to make my space peaceful, but it's my perception about it, right? So I'm not seeing them as a child of God, and I'm not seeing myself as one with God. And I think that really hit home for me in this, that says, all your difficulties stem from the fact that you do not recognize yourself or your brother or God, right? And when I don't recognize myself, I'm not free and I'm not powerful, right? Because I see myself as weak and I see myself as being able to be attacked. And when I know myself as God and I know myself as love, nothing can affect my energy. Nothing can affect my peace. Nothing can affect my happiness.
Yeah.
So it's a really good reminder for me.
Yeah. Good. And someplace in one of the lessons, it does say too that only I, my ego, can hurt me. That's the
Right.
only thing.
Yeah.
Only thing. And that's that's quite a stretch. Oh no, somebody could shoot me in the head. Well, you're not your body. You know, you're not that brain. You're a consciousness that's connected continuously, endlessly with the creator. And that's a huge jump. And I can say that. And in an hour, something can happen and I'll totally lose that. But it is the truth. And I've experienced it from time to time and been blessed, as I've shared before to some others, that me and a best friend back in the early 70s shared that day and night, even while we slept for about 72 hours. And it ended when I thought, gee, I wonder if I could use this blink, light switch off, cast into darkness. But at least then I had the memory of that's the only real thing that I've ever had, and there's got to be a way back. So that's 1970, 71, 72, folks.
Yeah.
Some of you weren't even in these bodies yet. Anyway.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of Natalie's story too, that, you know, maybe that woman could see in that child, she could see herself, and she could see that part of her that so desperately wanted to feel safe. And maybe that the money was that thing that made him feel safe. And she could just give him love to say, I see you because I see me. I see that part of me that just wanted that safety and that security. That's so amazing when you can see yourself and others at that moment, instead of being triggered and being angry, and only see the love that you want to share. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime that there's a grievance, you're only hurting yourself. You know, you're depriving yourself of your own peace.
Yeah.
I too really love that lesson. In my defenselessness, my safety lies. It's always jumped out at me, and I've used it quite often when I do feel it's attacked or slightly threatened. I know that if I believe that I'm God and that I'm perfect happiness, there's really nothing to defend. And I've experienced, like, if someone is acting out, I don't want to join with them in their beliefs, because I think when you don't join with someone, it will weaken that belief, that false belief that that person is carrying, and kind of diffuses the situation.
Yep. Great point, Jude. Whatever you share, you strengthen. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Anybody else want to share?
Yeah, I found this bracelet. Oh, I don't know if you call it bracelet. This thing of Course in Miracles. God goes with me wherever I go. I didn't even buy it. Somebody had it and I know gave it to me. And but just I was walking at the beach just before the meeting here, and I was contemplating, like, I have some knee issues, and I realized, and I took myself out anyway. I did yoga anyway. I took myself out for a walk anyway, kind of. I don't know if it's wise or not, but it was like, okay, I'm not going to go into the weakness, like you said here. And I don't know if that's smart or not, seriously. But it's like, and I really like when I was walking, I was feeling in the body. Well, it's not in the body, but it's like in the mind body. There's energy of fear, and this energy of fear trying to kind of like almost afraid to walk, afraid to move forward, afraid to, you know, and the thing I felt it as not just an idea, but I felt it as like in almost in the cells of the body, some kind of like a memory of fear, you know? And I realized, okay, this is like a memory I've been carrying on for years and years and years and years. And sometimes it was more suppressed and sometimes it was more obvious. And now I guess it's just long share. I guess it's just in the last few months, it just made itself obvious. Like, okay, you can't hide it anymore. Here I am. When you know, are you gonna see me or not? Are you gonna keep on like pushing me? You know, like you don't exist. And yeah, and I thought about it. It's like, okay, going back to what we read now in the text, what came to my mind was, let's say, a positive perception would be like, you know, like as a coach. Yeah, I can do it. Or, yeah, I have the power, you know, and it's very popular now. Or optimistic, think positive, think good, you know. Yeah, you know, and in a way I feel at the moment that can be good as well, you know, if I have that more in my life, this kind of thinking, you know, as a healing, as a transformation. But it's like on the other side of the text, the knowing feels more like what the Course is like. Like nothing can threaten me, really. Like, you know, God goes with me wherever I go, and like that's like I'm not a body. I'm free. God created me. That's like a higher kind of knowing, this place of peace, like that's beyond any fear. So yeah, that's what I thought about when you read the text. Yeah, thanks. And a happy belated birthday.
Oh, thank you, Angelina. That's so sweet. Hey, there's something that you said that really made me think about something, because I think it's really powerful when you said there was something inside of me that wanted to be seen, right? Because I think a lot of times our thoughts and our emotions, depending on where we are and in our life, when things happen that create trauma, right? That surprise us and traumatize us at that moment, when we're not feeling 100% connected with God, and we're more in that place of fear. We do try to hide them, right? We try to stuff them down so we don't have to deal with them, because maybe we have to go to work that day, or maybe we have kids we have to raise, or maybe there's something going on in our life where you're like, I can't deal with this right now. I have to just hide it away someplace. I'll deal with it later. But sometimes we don't go back, right? And it wants to be seen, right? It's bubbling up. It wants to be seen. And it's kind of like that monster in the closet that the Course talks about, that, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger because you didn't look at it the first time. And now you're like afraid to open the closet door. But there is this thing called the peace process that I've done with people that's very helpful with really just detaching from the thought of why it's there and really focusing on the feeling and allowing it to come up and be seen. And you kind of bring it to the light and heal it just by giving it love. And it's super powerful. So if you're ever interested in doing that, or if anybody is ever interested in doing that, let me know. And, I'd be happy to kind of do that process with you guys, because I've had people do it with me before, and it's so freeing, and it's amazing. And you don't realize how much stuff you bury, right? And then there's just more stuff. So once you start freeing it, it's like you said, it bubbles up. It just wants you to look at it and say, look, just look at me so I can be gone, right? So thank you for sharing that.
I would love to. I just want to say something smart. I smiled when you said the monster in the closet, because it was so like synchronicity. Because I always look for movies that are today in the TV, and there's a movie Color Skull, something like with Anne Hathaway, something like that. Anyway, her name is something like that. I'm saying, but in this movie there is like a monster.
Right.
She's like realizing that there is a monster appearing outside in the world that is really her.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, that's a great movie.
Ah, yeah. What's the name?
Colossus or something like that.
Yeah.
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 It's happening in Korea. And she's in America, and it's in Korea. And every time she stepped into the park, she became the monster. Yeah, it was a great movie.
Interesting. I'll have to look it up.
And so when I saw that's the movie, it got me like, I did some writing this morning, like kind of an introspection, and I thought, this fear that he's hearing is like that monster, like that monster kind of, that's trying to hide it, and this monster just comes out and like, hey, look at me, I'm here.
And that guy became the real monster. Yeah.
We'll have to check that out. Sounds interesting.
It has a lot of really spiritual undertones to it. It's quite interesting.
It's called the Colossus.
I'm not sure if that's correct or not, but I can't look it up because I'm doing this on my phone. But just look up Anne Hathaway movies, and because she is the star in it.
Thank you.
Colossal, COLOSSAL.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
2016 science fiction comedy.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
It said it was a comedy. I didn't find it very funny. It was more action than it was funny.
Interesting. All right. Any other shares on what we just read, or shall we continue?
I just want to say I'd really be interested in that peace process. If anybody else is, we could do it during
Yeah, we could do a separate Zoom peace process. So yeah, let me know. Maybe just send me an email. Just reply to the emails that I send out, and maybe we'll set up a Zoom on that. That would be fun. I'd like to do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd like that too.
Yeah,
me
I
too.
would too. I'm interested.
Okay, good.
Yeah, me too.
Because it's more about getting into the feeling, yeah.
Getting into the feeling, exactly. Yeah.
I think it's something appeals to me about not overthinking.
Right.
Because overthinking, I think keeps me trapped in the hamster wheel of suffering.
Yep. And during this process, you let go of why you think it's there. You just let go of it to get all together. But it's a very interesting, powerful practice. So yeah, I just send me a text message and we'll set it up. Or not text message, an email. So I think you all have my email.
What? So we're going to do it as a group, yeah?
Yeah, we can do it as a group.
Yeah.
Yep, we absolutely can do it as a group, and we can kind of take turns. Yeah, that would be great. Awesome. All right, shall we continue, or does anybody else want to add to what we just said? All right. So the next is error and the ego.
Aren't they the same thing?
Well, we're going to find out, right? Okay. The abilities you now possess are only shadows of your real strength. All of your present functions are divided and open to question and doubt. This is because you are not certain how you will use them and are therefore incapable of knowledge. You are also incapable of knowledge because you can still perceive lovelessly. Perception did not exist until the separation introduced degrees, aspects, and intervals. Spirit has no levels, and all conflict arises from the concept of levels. Only the levels of the Trinity are capable of unity. The levels created by the separation cannot but conflict. This is because they are meaningless to each other. Consciousness, the level of perception, was the first split introduced into the mind after the separation, making the mind a perceiver rather than a creator. Consciousness is correctly identified as the domain of the ego. The ego is a wrong-minded attempt to perceive yourself as you wish to be, rather than as you are. Yet you can know yourself only as you are, because that is all you can be sure of. Everything else is open to question. The ego is the questioning aspect of the post-separation self, which was made rather than created. It is capable of asking questions, but not of perceiving meaningful answers, because these would involve knowledge and cannot be perceived. The mind is therefore confused because only one-mindedness can be without confusion. A separated or divided mind must be confused. It is necessarily uncertain about what it is. It has to be in conflict because it is out of accord with itself. This makes its aspects strangers to each other. And this is the essence of the fear-prone condition, in which attack is always possible. You have every reason to feel afraid as you perceive yourself. This is why you cannot escape from fear until you realize that you did not and could not create yourself. You can never make your misperceptions true, and your creation is beyond your own error. That is why you must eventually choose to heal the separation. Right-mindedness is not to be confused with the knowing mind, because it is applicable only to right perception. You can be right-minded or wrong-minded, and even this is subject to degrees, clearly demonstrating that knowledge is not involved. The term right-mindedness is properly used as the correction for wrong-mindedness and applies to the state of mind that induces accurate perception. It is miracle-minded because it heals misperception. And this is indeed a miracle in view of how you perceive yourself. Perception always involves some misuse of mind because it brings the mind into areas of uncertainty. The mind is very active. When it chooses to be separated, it chooses to perceive. Until then, it wills only to know. Afterwards, it can only choose ambiguously, and the only way out of ambiguity is clear perception. The mind returns to its proper function only when it wills to know. This places it in the service of spirit, where perception is changed. The mind chooses to divide itself when it chooses to make its own levels. But it could not entirely separate itself from spirit, because it is from spirit that it derives its whole power to make or create. Even in miscreation, the mind is affirming its source, or it would merely cease to be. This is impossible because the mind belongs to spirit, which God created, and which is therefore eternal. The ability to perceive made the body possible, because you must perceive something and with something. That is why perception involves an exchange or translation, which knowledge does not need. The interpretive function of perception is a distorted form of creation, then permits you to interpret the body as yourself in an attempt to escape from the conflict you have induced. Spirit, which knows, could not be reconciled with this loss of power because it is incapable of darkness. This makes spirit almost inaccessible to the mind and entirely inaccessible to the body. Therefore, spirit is perceived as a threat because light abolishes darkness, merely by showing you it is not there. Truth will always overcome error in this way, This cannot be an active process of correction because, as I have already emphasized, knowledge does not do anything. It can be perceived as an attacker, but it cannot attack.
Mm.
What you perceive as its attack is your own vague recognition that knowledge can always be remembered, never having been destroyed. God and his creations remain in surety, and therefore know that no miscreation exists. Truth cannot deal with errors that you want. I was a man who remembered spirit and its knowledge. As a man, I did not attempt to counteract error with knowledge, but to correct error from the bottom up. I demonstrated both the powerlessness of the body and the power of the mind by uniting my will with that of my creator. I naturally remembered spirit and its real purpose. I cannot unite your will with God's for you, but I can erase all misperceptions from your mind if you will bring it under my guidance. Only your misperceptions stand in your way. Without them, your choice is certain. Sane perception induces sane choosing. I cannot choose for you, but I can help you make your own right choice. Many are called, but few are chosen, should be all are called, but few choose to listen. Therefore, they do not choose right. The chosen ones are merely those who choose right sooner. Right minds can do this now, and they will find rest unto their souls. God knows you only in peace, and this is your reality.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a good one, right? There was a lot in that.
Hey, I'd like to share this. I guess I'm unmuted, right? You can hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
This is a book that Dr. Ken Wapnick put out, I don't know, 15 years ago or more. He's passed on from this life into the next. But anyway, it's full of terms from the course, which you probably cannot see, but this one's on knowledge. And what Ken did was he went through and took the word knowledge and found it throughout the course as it relates to other terms like Christ, course, creation, ego, so forth. But at the top, right here, he gives about 50 words and he defines knowledge. And I'd like to share what that is, because we keep hearing knowledge here, and this is not the same knowledge.
Sure, please share. That's great.
So what? And Ken was he came in early with Helen Schuckman and Bill Thetford as kind of a trusted third and fourth member there of that early on dissemination of the course. Anyway, knowledge, heaven, or the pre-separation world of God as his unified creation in which there are no differences or forms, and thus it is exclusive of the world of perception, not to be confused with the more common use of knowledge, and this is in lowercase, which implies a subject who knows, in quotes, and an object which is known, also in quotes. Here it reflects pure experience with no subject-object dichotomy. There you are. Anyway, I will be quiet.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for sharing that, Tim. And I've also got a copy of that. It's really very helpful.
It is. It really is.
What's the title of that book?
It's a glossary index for A Course in Miracles.
Yes,
You can get it on Amazon or?
Yes.
I'm sure.
Thanks.
Yeah. The one I have is the second edition. It's enlarged. for older body eyes.
And you said the author was Ken Wapnick.
Yep, I put it in the chat box. I've got actually the 8th edition.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
thanks.
You got much later.
Shut
Good.
my door. Hold on a minute, everyone.
Yeah, the second edition I've got was issued in, oh, I don't know. Let's see. Looks like 1982.
I've got the second edition of a glossary of terms from A Course in Miracles. The author is Robert Perry.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Robert Perry. Ah,
like
I think I've
200
heard that name.
definitions to help you take an active role as you study this course. And I'm going to look for the copyright. 2005.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Very good. Anybody else want to share anything based on what we just read? I mean, that's really interesting about knowledge, right?
Yeah, let me just say what it says in the Robert Perry course
Oh, he's got it.
course glossary.
There you
How
go.
he says that knowledge is the heavenly condition of knowing reality through direct and total union with it, unmediated by physical senses or mental interpretation. Knowledge and perception are mutually exclusive, for perception involves a separation between subject and object, knower and known. This makes certainty impossible. Yet knowledge is completely certain and without question. Thus it does not change, and hence it is timeless. There's a little bit more, but basically it's the heavenly condition of knowing reality through total and direct union with it.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very good. Yeah, that's totally agree.
All right, we have a little bit more time, so let's try to get another section in unless somebody else wants to share. Okay. Beyond perception. Let's see what this has to say.
You're very good at reading it.
Oh, thank you.
You don't seem to tire at all. It's very impressive.
I just find it so interesting, you know, and even though I have been reading this for, oh my gosh, 29 years now, I love it. And it always seems to be speaking to whatever is happening in my life at the moment.
Wonderful.
Okay. I have said that the abilities you possess are only shadows of your real strength, and that perception, which is inherently judgmental, was introduced only after the separation. No one has been sure of anything since. I have also made it clear that the resurrection was the means for the return to knowledge, which was accomplished by the union of my will with the Father's. We can now establish a distinction that will clarify some of our subsequent statements. Since the separation, the words create and make have become confused. When you make something, you do so out of a specific sense of lack or need. Anything made for a specific purpose has no true generalizability. When you make something to fill a perceived lack, you are tacitly implying that you believe in separation. The ego has invented many ingenious thought systems for this purpose. None of them is creative. Inventiveness is wasted effort, even in its most ingenious form. The highly specific nature of invention is not worthy of the abstract creativity of God's creations. Knowing, as we have already observed, does not lead to doing. The confusion between your real creation and what you have made of yourself is so profound that it has become literally impossible for you to know anything. Knowledge is always stable, and it is quite evident that you are not. Nevertheless, you are perfectly stable as God created you. In this sense, when your behavior is unstable, you are disagreeing with God's idea of your creation. You can do this if you choose, but you would hardly want to if you were in your right mind. The fundamental question you continually ask yourself cannot properly be directed to yourself at all. You keep asking what it is you are. This implies that the answer is not only one you know, but is also one that is up to you to supply. Yet you cannot perceive yourself correctly. You have no image to be perceived. The word image is always perception related and not a part of knowledge. Images are symbolic and stand for something else. The idea of changing your image recognizes the power of perception, but also implies that there is nothing stable to know. Knowing is not open to interpretation. You may try to interpret meaning, but this is always open to error because it refers to the perception of meaning. Such incongruities are the result of attempts to regard yourself as separated and unseparated at the same time. It is impossible to make so fundamental a confusion without increasing your overall confusion still further. Your mind may have become very ingenious, but as always happens when method and content are separated, it is utilized in a futile attempt to escape from an inescapable impasse. Ingenuity is totally divorced from knowledge because knowledge does not require ingenuity. Ingenious thinking is not the truth that shall set you free, but you are free of the need to engage in it when you are willing to let it go. Prayer is a way of asking for something. It is the medium of miracles, but the only meaningful prayer is for forgiveness, because those who have been forgiven have everything. Once forgiveness has been accepted, prayer in the usual sense becomes utterly meaningless. The prayer for forgiveness is nothing more than a request that you may be able to recognize what you already have. In electing perception instead of knowledge, you placed yourself in a position where you could resemble your Father only by perceiving miraculously. You have lost the knowledge that you yourself are a miracle of God. Creation is your source and your only real function. The statement, God created man in his own image and likeness, needs reinterpretation. Image can be understood as thought, and likeness as of a like quality. God did create spirit in his own thought and of a quality like his own. There is nothing else. Perception, on the other hand, is impossible without a belief in more and less. At every level, it involves selectivity. Perception is a continual process of accepting and rejecting, organizing and reorganizing, shifting and changing. Evaluation is an essential part of perception because judgments are necessary in order to select. What happens to perceptions if there are no judgments and nothing but perfect equality? Perception becomes impossible. Truth can only be known. All of it is equally true, and knowing any part of it is to know all of it. Only perception involves partial awareness. Knowledge transcends the laws governing perception because partial knowledge is impossible. It is all one and has no separate parts. You who are really one with it need but know yourself, and your knowledge is complete. To know God's miracle is to know him. Forgiveness is the healing of the perception of separation. Correct perception of your brother is necessary. because minds have chosen to see themselves as separate. Spirit knows God completely. That is its miraculous power. The fact that each one has this power completely is a condition entirely alien to the world's thinking. The world believes that if anyone has everything, there is nothing left. But God's miracles are as total as his thoughts, because they are his thoughts. As long as perception lasts, prayer has a place. Since perception rests on lack, those who perceive have not totally accepted the at-one-ment and given themselves over to truth. Perception is based on a separated state, so that anyone who perceives at all needs healing. Communion, not prayer, is the natural state of those who know. God and his miracle are inseparable. How beautiful indeed are the thoughts of God who live in his light. Your worth is beyond perception because it is beyond doubt. Do not perceive yourself in different lights. Know yourself in the one light where the miracle that is you is perfectly clear. Okay.
Wow.
Very interesting to know that it's just always about forgiveness, right? And forgiving your brother and forgiving yourself for seeing yourself as separate from your brother.
I just had a thought. You know, we look at when you mentioned, Terry, the forgiveness. You know, what happens is, at least I do this, is like, well, I can forgive that and I can forgive that and that, but I can't forgive that. You know, and then that one little thing rules our life, or those few little things. You know, and I've had this experience with my youngest, who's now 33, my son, and thinking, well, you know, I'm like more than twice his age. You know, I've been around, I've worked a lot of jobs, and et cetera, et cetera. What does he know? And I am absolutely amazed that, you know, as far as worldly knowledge, he probably knows, you know, more than I do about a lot of things. So that kind of threw that out. Well, you know, so why are you not honoring your son? You know, what is it? You're still seeing him as this little boy, as this person who maybe has to get his way occasionally. Oh, I never wanted to get my way, did I, Tim? Oh, no, I've always been selfless. You know, you have to, again, get to the point where this is a ridiculous joke. This is a sham. This is something that I created. You know, whatever. This ego thing was created maybe hundreds of millions of years ago. I don't know. Again, it doesn't make any difference if it was last year. What he's talking about here is beyond, really beyond words. All we can try to do is to put it in as few words as possible. God is, and we are part of God. I mean, that's a few words, but those are words. So that's the frustration. But you know, Terry, as you're reading, I'm like, oh wow, yes, oh yeah, great, all right, and it's coming in like a continuous stream of consciousness where he's trying to talk us out of our limited you know, we label a flower. Oh, I'd like to know this name of this flower. What's this flower? I mean, it's pointless. It's stuff we've made up. And the German people have a whole different language about that. The French have another. Do we have to learn all of that before we got enough? Before I can say, ah, I'm the most brilliant person in the world. I know 18 languages. That's somebody that's probably very constipated. Again, you have to be able to joke. You can't take yourself seriously. That's when I get into all the trouble. That's why I come back to those 6 words. In my defenselessness, my safety lies. And when I find myself with my son or whoever, oh, well, it's this way, da, 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 and they're really beating on their drum, I got to go, okay, am I going to argue with them? I could take their side. Maybe this is a African American, pro African American position or whatever, but does that make any sense? That some of us are black and some are yellow, brown. We're all one people. Anyway, I'm taking up a lot of time. There is no time.
There you go. And that's where all of the discussion lies, right? And when we get into all of this perception realm, right? And we forget the real power that lies with just that word, God is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. We were at the beach yesterday and just the 6 of us in the family. We have 2 still kind of ostracized. But our little pod is safe because we can't kill each other. Again. And anyway, we're just watching the water, the birds, the people. And I was like, oh my God, it was incredible. Just to be there in all of that simplicity and be able to let things drop away. Not that they can't when I'm with my flowers or whatever, but anyway, again, I'm talking away and commanding. I'm not commanding. No, Tim, you're not commanding.
No, I get it. And actually, I think it was Eckhart Tolle that said, one of the best ways to be here now in this moment is to look deep into a flower. To really get absorbed in the math, right? The synchronicity, the patterns of the flower, and in just looking at the flower, you can know everything. And it's just being in that at one minute, right? Being in that place of being at one with everything.
Terry, you bring up about the flower with Eckhart Tolle, and I'm in another group, a Zoom group, and we're doing the book Stillness Speaks by Eckhart Tolle. And we read last week one of the little gems that he puts in here. Look at a tree, a flower, a plant. Let your awareness rest upon it. How still they are and how deeply rooted in being. Allow nature to teach you the stillness.
Mm-hmm.
And you become still yourself.
Right.
You connect with it on a very deep level and you feel the oneness.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful book, by the way. Stillness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. I have that book too.
Yeah. It's one of my
Amazing.
favorites.
Yeah. Anybody want to share anything else before we close?
I was just thinking about Tim and how relaxed Tim comes across to me.
Oh,
And,
right now. Wait till I get into my doing projects.
I was thinking how you must be in receipt of a certain amount of grace to be that relaxed.
If I can get out of my way, Freddie, that little Tim is Big Tim's worst enemy. It's actually my only enemy. Get away, go. Really, if you can't laugh at yourself, you are in trouble, temporarily in trouble.
Yeah. I put something in the chat area too, Tim. I love Kahlil Gibran, and he's written The Prophet. He's got a section in that book on children that I love. I just absolutely love. So I think if you read that, that might also give you a really amazing perspective, right? About children from just a different place of looking at them.
Neat. Thank you, Terry.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I really appreciate all of you, and well, I more than appreciate you. And here I'm getting a little bit misty-eyed, but you know, all we really are, we talk about, you know, he spends 100,000 words here, million words, whatever, talking about the same thing. All we really are, when everything is gone, when it's all stripped away, some people on their deathbed realizes that, oh my God, my entire life I've struggled to make money. I've given up all my freedom. Believe me, I have known that. I've worked 2 and 3 jobs at one time for quite a while, and made a lot of what I thought were sacrifices. But you know, that was again my choice. There was nobody going, Tim, you need to work 2 jobs. You're a lazy bastard if you don't. You know, it just, that was little Tim's way of giving myself a little credit, you know. I mean, but my point here is, all we are, when it's all done with and we get down to that last word, there's 4 little letters, and they're love, and they're said in every religion in the world, I believe. Shalom, peace, whatever, all that. Anyway, those are just words. So we got to let all these attachments, all these worries about, am I going to get COVID, or, you know, am I going to get the money in time, or whatever that stuff is, we just imprison ourselves. We constantly imprison ourselves. And guess what? We're in this little cage, but that door is never closed. We think it is because we see the rest of the cage all the time. But right there, or right here, maybe, right here in our third eye, it's always open. Why do we do this? I really hope that this is the last useless journey I have to make, as he said simply.
That's
It
amazing.
says at the beginning of the course that it's a required class. It's just our choice when to do it.
Right.
I have a favorite quote: simplicity, source of all truth. And it just, you know, that last quote that we read in the book is just that,
Yeah.
just knowing. I want to thank everybody. and
Yes,
say
thank you,
bye.
everyone. I know
Bye-bye.
I've passed the time, so
I still
see you
talk-
all next week. Thank you so much for sharing and just being here. Love you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All
everybody.
right.
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Till next time.